Here we
Hit,
go.
hit, and rough. And we're back.
We are back. Welcome to Dream Idiots. My name is Morris. The fellow over there is Bryan, and each week we bring you stories, all kinds of stories, history, quizzes, stories from our personal life, things we saw, things we heard we saw, things we saw we heard. How are you, Bryan?
I am doing okay. Thanks for the 2 weeks off. Life intervened yet again. And so, um, quick word of thanks to folks. My very sweet, very delightful, very kind, very empathetic mother passed away on October 25th. So, thanks for well wishes and condolences that I've gotten come from a wide array of sources. And so that's certainly appreciated. If you're a friend of the pod, I mean, certainly there's considerable overlap among our listeners and folks that know me and know both of us in life in San Antonio. And there are some folks who listen to this who may have come across my mom over the years. She was a jillion years ago instrumental in founding the University Presbyterian Children's Center, a little school. It's mostly a pre-K school that I actually attended as well. It opened in '69 or '70. And if you're at all interested in honoring her, there is a scholarship fund set up in her name, Helene Treat, Helene, at the University Presbyterian Children's Center. So we're raising money in her name, hoping to raise $10,000 maybe. It's
Oh, awesome.
basically a fund. It's a really really cool school, but pre-K school. There's lots of folks there are underprivileged. Staff there obviously probably not paid great. And this scholarship fund is actually not for the students. The way it has been set up, it was actually set up many years ago when she was on their board of directors 25 years ago. They set it up then, and staff there could apply for basically an annual bonus of a little extra money. And so all these dollars are going to go as bonuses to staff at this school. So if you'd like to contribute, I'll put the URL in the show notes. And
Awesome.
thanks for your patience. And then, as always, please like and share and subscribe to our stuff if you can. Give us 5 stars on whichever platform you're on. Shoot us a review if you don't mind. You can check us out on dreamidiots.com, Facebook, and Instagram. We're at Dream Idiots. And if you got a story idea or just want to drop us a line, you can do that as well at dreamidiotspodcast@gmail.com.
And Bryan, you and I've already talked offline, off mic about your mom, but she was a grand lady, and she will be missed. Uh, and thanks to everyone who's been helping Bryan out with their thoughts and well wishes.
Absolutely. We appreciate it.
So we've missed 2 weeks, so I think we're on an even numbered episode, 132 by my count. Is that correct, Bryan?
132, and this is dropping on election day. So
Woo!
hopefully we'll be back for 133 in case, if that asshole Trump wins, that Earth's going to spin off its fucking axis. But we assume we're back next week. So yeah, this is election day, 132.
All right. Shall I begin?
Go.
Bryan, I'm going to tell you about a fellow by the name of John LaGale. That's capital A, lowercase a, big G, little a, little e, little l, little e. John LaGale, Horton. John LaGale Horton.
Hmm.
He was born April 25th, 1924, in the most country and or western city in the United States, Los Angeles, California. Despite his Southern California origins, the Horton family lived primarily in Rusk, Texas, a tiny town almost equidistant from Dallas and Houston. You ever heard of Rusk?
No.
I had to look it up. Um, the Horton parents and their 5 children, of which Johnny was the youngest, often traveled between Rusk and Southern California as migrant laborers. So Johnny was most likely born on one of the West Coast trips there. Later on, not as a baby, but as a teenager, Johnny played basketball at Gallatin High School in Cherokee County near Rusk. His skills were good enough for a basketball scholarship to Lon Morris College in Jacksonville, Texas. Are you familiar with Lon Morris?
No.
Lon
Should I
Morris
be?
was a junior college of the United Methodist Church affiliation. It closed in 2012. Bryan, I'm wearing a Lon Morris shirt now.
Oh, geez. The
The
Morris Bearcats.
Bearcats. I bought it solely because it has the word Morris on it. Horton also
People
attended.
will see you in that shirt and think your last name is Bearcats now, but go ahead.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I didn't want to tell you this, but I am changing my name. Um, Horton also attended Seattle and Baylor universities, and he never earned a degree from any of these institutions. In the late 40s and early 50s, Horton kicked around Los Angeles, as old Red Barber used to call it, appearing on KXLA, one of the first generation country stations out of Pasadena, California. He sang and played guitar. He had guest appearances on Hometown Jamboree, and for a while hosted his own half-hour program entitled The Singing Fisherman. Bet you didn't see that coming. It's a nickname which reflected his two great passions. He married a woman named Donna Cook while in Southern California. Antithetical to Horace Greeley's advice to go yet west, young man, and seek fame and fortune, Horton set his sights on Louisiana for his musical career. In 1952, the famous KWKH radio program, Louisiana Hayride, broadcasting out of Shreveport, introduced Horton to the radio public at large. The program was Cajun country's answer to Nashville's Grand Ole Opry. And I specifically remember listening to the revitalized when they brought that program back in the 70s and 80s with my dad.
Hmm.
You could pick it up pretty clearly up in the hill country when we'd be up there. Horton performed under the ungainly moniker of the Singing Fisherman and the Rowley Trio, later wisely changing the name to Johnny Horton and the Roadrunners. The success on the Hayride came at a cost. He and Donna divorced. She returned to California, and he continued to appear on the Hayride, but headed east once again, this time to Nashville. He also courted a woman named Billie Jean Jones. Now, Billie Jean had been married twice before. Her first marriage to Harrison Eshelman ended in divorce. In October of 1952, she married the legendary singer Hank Williams.
Oh, wow.
October of 52. By New Year's Day of 1953, she was a widow. William's heart gave out, no doubt to his breathtaking alcoholism. He was found dead in the backseat of his Cadillac. Johnny and Billie married in September of 1953. They would have two daughters together. Horton would adopt Billie's other daughter, I think from the Eshelman marriage, and this marriage between Johnny and Billie seemed to stick for both of them. Johnny's music evolved in an almost uncategorizable genre unto itself. It has, at times, been called country and western, honky-tonk, and rockabilly. He had almost single-handedly perfected a subgenre, the historical narrative. He sang of pioneers and explorers, of wars and battles. One look at his 1961 Greatest Hits collection from Columbia Records, and here it is.
Wow.
Yeah, it confirms this. 8 of the 12 songs on that LP fell into the historical narrative genre. I must interject here that I have owned this album on vinyl, cassette, compact disc, and 8-track tape. Houston's peak period was 1959 to 1960. You might remember a song, The Battle of New Orleans, which won the Grammy for Best Country and Western Single in 1960. It's now song number 333 on the Recording Industries Associations of America's Songs of the Century list.
Hmm.
The song was set during the War of 1812. Do you remember the song? I bet you know it.
I'm sure I recognize it.
In
I can't
1814, we
think
took
of
a
it.
little trip along with Colonel Jackson down the mighty Mississippi. We took a little bacon and we took a little beans and we fought the bloody British in the town of New Orleans.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure I recognize it.
Okay. Uh, his number one country song, When It's Springtime in Alaska, my personal favorite song. When It's Springtime in Alaska, It's 40 Below, landed in 1959. His Billboard Hot 100 number 3 song of 1960 was Sink the Bismarck, which used the movie of the same name as inspiration. It told the tale of British destroyers hunting a nefarious German battleship during World War II. North to Alaska got big in 1960, being used in the John Wayne film of the same name. The song hit number 1 on the Hot Country charts, number 4 in the Billboard Hot 100, and oddly, number 10 on what is now the R&B hip hop songs label or chart. Some of his other historical narrative songs told stories of unheralded characters from America's years of westward expansion, such as Jim Bridger, an explorer and scout of no small reputation. Now, Bridger may have been the guy who gave the Donner Party some really bad travel advice in 1846, telling the pioneers that the road ahead was fine and level except for a 40-mile stretch with no water. The road was not fine and level, and the 40-mile waterless stretch was a more like an 80-mile waterless stretch. This particular tale is not in that song, but the next story is. Bridger may have recommended to General George Armstrong Custer not to mess about with the Teton Sioux, also known as the Lakota. In the words of Horton's song, he spoke with General Custer and said, "Listen, yeller hair, the Sioux are a great nation. Treat 'em fair and square. Sit in on their war councils. Don't laugh away their pride." But Custer didn't listen. At Little Bighorn, Custer died. In other words, Bryan, that honky got shot.
Famously.
Famously shot. Speaking of Custer, the late general's horse was the titular character of Horton's song Comanche the Brave Horse. It's a damned tearjerker. I speak from experience. A non-historical song of Horton's, Honky Tonk Man, charted twice on the Country 100, reaching number 9 in 1956 and again in 1962 at number 11. Bob Luman, a fellow Louisiana hayride performer, took the song to number 22 in 1970. And Dwight Yoakam took the song all the way to number 3 in 1986. The song had long legs. It charted in 4 different decades. In the spring of 1960, amidst his greatest chart presence, Johnny Horton was making his rounds on the concert circuit and found himself in the Texas Hill Country. He was an honored guest judge in a town's local talent show, where he also played for the crowds a bit. The winner was a fine pianist who impressed Horton so much, he tried to convince her to head to Nashville and record. Her parents would not let her go. She was only 17. Everyone who met Horton said he was an all-around nice guy. As he pulled his brand new Cadillac into a filling station, locals took notice of the shiny car. 2 teenage girls, Shirley and LB, were taking a particularly long look. Horton invited them to sit in the car and check it out while he paid for gas. The girls took turns using the car's electric windows, watching them rise up from the doors and then sink back down into them. They had never seen anything like it in their part of Texas. About 6 months later, Horton drove that same car on a road trip to Austin and put on a barn burner of a show at the Skyline Club. Is that still around?
The Skyline Club.
Skyline
I've
Club?
heard of the Skyline Club. What year was this
This
going
would
to
be
be?
1960. I
Um,
don't know if it's still there or not.
I'm sure it's not. I'm trying to figure out what that may have evolved into or where that was. I don't know.
His performance, as usual, was fantastic, but he had become trouble of late. He hated driving such distances and had a recurring nightmare of being killed by a drunk driver. Horton himself was a teetotaler. Friends, bandmates, and even fans attest to this very specific fear, one which had plagued him for many months, if not years. He got into his Cadillac, accompanied by bassist and manager Tillman Franks and guitarist Tommy Tomlinson. They headed east out of Austin on Highway 79, bound for home. Shreveport, Louisiana was a little over 280 miles away, about a 5.5-hour drive. Sometime in the very early hours of November 5th, 1960, the musicians made it to Milano, Texas, only 60 to 70 miles from the Texas capital. I'm not familiar with Milano, Texas. I've never been out that way.
No, me neither.
Horton was still behind the wheel. Heading in the other direction, driving a Ford Ranchero pickup truck, was 19-year-old James Evan Davis, a student at Texas A&M. The Ford Ranchero is an odd-looking duck, a large, typical 50s Ford on the front, a pickup truck in the back. Inaugurated in 1957, the Ford Ranchero preceded Chevrolet's car-truck hybrid, the El Camino, by 2 years.
Ill-conceived is right. Hideous vehicle.
Yeah, and the Camino looks like a Porsche compared to the Ford Ranchero. That night, behind the wheel of his Ranchero, Davis was drunk. The 2 cars were driving over a bridge at the same time, about to pass each other, when Davis bounced his Ranchero off the guardrail, spinning out into Horton's Cadillac. The collision was devastating. Tillman Franks was battered and bruised. Tommy Tomlinson had a leg injury so severe that amputation would eventually be necessary. Davis, drunk as he was, got out with scrapes and bruises. Horton was pronounced dead on arrival at the nearest hospital, some 13 miles from the accident site. He was 35 years old.
Wow.
James Evan Davis was found guilty of, quote, murder without malice. Not a phrase I'm particularly familiar with. And he was sentenced to, can you guess what he was sentenced to after November 5th, 1960?
Murder without malice.
Mm-hmm.
It's either going to be, incredibly severe or a slap on the wrist. Probation.
2 years probation. Under Texas law today, as I understand it, Evans would be charged with, quote, intoxication manslaughter,
Right.
which is
And
a
get
second
25
degree
years.
it's a second degree felony carrying a prison sentence of no less than 2 years and no more than 20. I think this falls under the umbrella of vehicular manslaughter, but I'm not quite sure. I don't hold a JD. Davis died around sometime around 2006, at the age of 65. Billie Jean Horton was now a widow for the second time. Her two dead husbands shared something else besides her love. Their final performances were both at the Skyline Club in Austin, some 7 years apart. Hank Williams' final show was December 19th, 1953, Horton's November 4th, 1960, and they both died in Cadillacs.
Hmm.
Some of Johnny's songs continued their rise on various charts after his death. The film North to Alaska, with Horton's title track, premiered on November 10th, 1960, and was a reasonable hit for 20th Century Fox Studios. I don't know if you've ever seen North to Alaska. You probably haven't because I know you're not a
No.
big Western kind of guy. It's a John Wayne film. Pop singer Fabian
Sure.
was in the movie. Yeah, he had a part in the film. His performance earned him an award from the Harvard Lampoon, Le- least promising actor of 1960. Horton was posthumously inducted into both the Louisiana Music Hall of Fame and the Delta Music Museum. As of this writing, he is not in the Country Music Hall of Fame, which he certainly should be. Given the crossover appeal he gained in other music genres, he seems like an excellent ambassador for the Hall of Fame. And having just visited the Country Music Hall of Fame a few weeks back when I went to Nashville, there's a lot of artists in there that Johnny Horton was way better than,
Hmm.
in my opinion. And as for the folks in the little town where he had visited months before his death, well, they mourned Horton too, and their lives went on. Shirley and LB, the two girls who had marveled at electric car windows, remained friends, but headed down different paths. Shirley married a local man and hung around. LB, perhaps remembering the kind musician she had met and his subsequent death, decided to attend nursing school in San Antonio, not too far from her hometown. She worked in the Central and South Texas region for years, primarily as an emergency room nurse. She split her time between smaller rural hospitals and larger ones in San Antonio. It was on such a San Antonio stint where she worked closely with a surgeon, a man she eventually married, and they had a kid who is reading this story to you now.
Yeah.
Johnny Horton, singing fisherman, honky tonk man, an all around great guy, 1925 to 1960.
Wow.
Sources for this piece were Wikipedia, the All Music Guide, interviews with my uncle Bob McCall, and talks I'd had with my late mother, Linda Franklin. Michael Corcoran's excellent November 3rd, 2023 article, Michael Corcoran's Overserved, North to Shreveport, The Death of Johnny Horton on Substack, and a great website, the deltamusicmuseum.com website. And as one last little PS, while I was sorting, I'm still sorting, as no doubt you will be doing. I'm still sorting through my parents' stuff,
Hmm.
right? And I was sorting through some of my mom's papers, determining what to throw away. When I found in one of her boxes a black and white 8x10 photo that she no doubt bought in 1960 when Johnny Horton visited her hometown.
Uh-huh.
I just found that like 2 weeks, a week or so after I wrote the story. I was
Oh,
going through her
wow.
papers and found
That's
this
bizarre.
photograph, which I framed. So
Yeah, very cool.
that is a brief look at Johnny Horton, his
Johnny
music,
Horton.
and the teenage girl who really enjoyed those electric car windows.
Excellent. Very cool. I have to do some Googling and listen to his stuff because rings a bell faintly, but I'll have to go back and do some searching.
When It's Springtime in Alaska is one of the all-time great Oops, I Done Fucked Up songs. It's fantastic. It's got a great
Okay.
ending. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. In that subgenre of Oops, I Done Fucked Up country western songs,
Uh-huh.
it is at the top of the list. It's a good
Right.
song. Great
Yeah,
song.
it's a robust category. Awesome. Thank you.
You bet.
So, quickly before heading into my story, do you have a quick sort of a curse word for you, coming straight from Urban Dictionary. You can probably guess this one. Sort of in honor of Election Day. Ever heard of an echo bunker?
An echo bunker. I've heard of
Uh-huh.
an echo chamber, but not an echo bunker.
Echo bunker is like an echo chamber, only built underground and absolutely impervious to truth. I chose this because election day, and I is here, and I saw someone who is very, very deeply embedded in their echo bunker. Here in the last week or so, I went to Mama's Cafe here in San Antonio, and I was waiting for a table, just standing outside the front door, and it had my breath taken away by a woman who was walking out the front door, just leaving, having eaten. She's probably Latina in her 50s. Someone had taken an image of Donald Trump seconds after he was grazed by that bullet back whenever the hell that was.
Hmm.
And there's that photo of him with his fist in the air, surrounded by security or Secret Service or whoever. So someone took this photo and printed it not on a T-shirt. I mean, they printed on T-shirts and a jillion other things as well. But with this one, it was front and back on a what appeared to be a very high quality garment, like a woman's wide collared silk blouse, button down blouse, with this image printed, full, from side to side, front and back. She's also wearing this bedazzled or bejeweled or besomething tennis bracelet that spells out Trump in diamonds, like
Oh my God.
like 50 or 60 diamonds. So it had to be. I mean, the T in Trump had must have had 10 or 12 diamonds in it. So it had to be custom jewelry because if these were real diamonds, that bracelet would have been a $250,000. I mean, I have no idea how to, a
Uh,
crazy amount of money. She has an adult daughter walking with her. She's wearing a Trump Vance t-shirt. She's also carrying a Shih Tzu or a Pomeranian or one of them there Chihuahuas. And the dog is wearing a harness that's also stitched with Trump Vance on the back of the harness.
oh, that poor
And
dog.
and
Oh,
I wanted to go over to her and tell her, yeah, ma'am, Donald Trump thinks you're here illegally and wants to deport you. He doesn't care anything about you. He doesn't want to know you. He just wants you gone or he wants you dead. And yet somehow you've convinced yourself that this man has your best interest at heart. So welcome to the Echo Bunker. Anyone who's being that demonstrative with their allegiance to the cult, you can't talk to because they're just, they're looking for a fight. But anyway, I was just blown away by this level of just stupid. But
and thank
there
you
you
for
have it.
coming to the fall fashion parade. We have Lily and her daughter coming down the runway, dressed in garments that are absolutely, positively batshit fucking crazy.
Right. Part of the fall delusion collection, right? And so, anyway,
Oh my God.
um, I am 24 hours ago or 48 hours ago. I was definitely stressed out. I think the election's going to have a good outcome, but next week we will know. So anyway,
By good, you mean RFK will take it? Is that what you're going for?
yeah, our RFK is going to take over, and he'll single handedly be in charge of women's health. Yeah, good things.
Well, I all I know is that tomorrow is election day, and it is the 64th anniversary of Johnny Horton's death. That's all I know going into tomorrow. So.
Okay, focus on the positive.
That's right.
Right. Okay, so for my story this week, I was not going to tell the story, but it has been on my mind and just kind of bugging me a little bit. But it's also a story that is probably very far from complete. So there will certainly be a part two to this story down the road at some point. So here we go. Feel free to chime in if you've heard anything about this story in the news, 'cause it's a very recent story.
Okay.
Okay. Suzanne Simpson was born in San Antonio in the early 1970s, I believe 1973. She graduated from the Texas Military Institute, which is a little bit weird because I thought TMI was a boys' school. Um, and then went up to Austin to go to UT, stayed in Austin for a period of time after college, worked for Dell Computers for a period of time, also with the Austin Chamber of Commerce before returning to San Antonio. She got married in the very early 2000s. Her husband, Brad Simpson, was born and raised in the area, attended Alma Heights High School. Over the years, they had four children, and Suzanne built a very successful career in residential real estate. By October of 2024, kids, I believe, are between the ages of 6 and 19, so they're definitely
Oh
spread
wow.
out in
Hmm.
age. They have a really pretty home in Almost Park on Almost Drive, as well as a property in Bandera County and perhaps property in Kendall County as well. So by all accounts, successful, and should be by all accounts doing well. Wide circle of friends, wide circle of business associates, and by all accounts, what appears to be a happy life. Just about a month ago, Sunday, October 6th, the couple goes to a party at a club called the Argyle, which I dimly recall from having been born and raised here. The Argyle is a little dinner club in Alma Heights, Almost Park. Um, so they were there on this Sunday evening for this event and went home that night. Apparently, at the party, they had had some sort of argument at the party. When they went home that night, a neighbor told police that between 10 and 11 p.m., he heard an argument outside his bedroom, and the argument was definitely getting louder and louder. Neighbor looks out his window. He sees the Simpsons essentially in the driveway, uh, in the middle of a physical altercation. Suzanne is trying to get away. Brad's trying to hold her, control her, pull her down. And it's clear from this witness that that Brad is trying to keep Suzanne from fleeing on foot, basically. Last thing he sees is he sees them heading westbound, I believe on foot, but I'm not completely certain of that. Uh, Neighbor goes downstairs, goes outside. Short time later, he hears two or three screams from a brushy area just to the east of where he lives. So this is going to be a little bit lost on folks that are not from this area. But since you were born and raised here, you can picture Almost Park, Almost Basin, the dam.
Hmm. Hmm.
There is a fairly densely wooded area, sort of along Contour Drive on on the
Yep.
southern edge of Almost Basin. So
Yeah,
this,
I lived in apartments right near there. I lived at
right,
the old Bassey Road apartments. Yeah, yeah, or
yeah,
Bassey
yeah.
Road.
So
Yeah.
right, so me too. And there is some fairly dense vegetation in there. So he sees them heading westbound and hears the screams. About an hour later, same neighbor sees Brad come back, hop into his black GMC pickup truck, leaves the house. Brad comes back to the house 1 or 2 hours later. Why the fuck this guy isn't paying any closer attention to the clock irritates the fuck out of me. Was it 1 hour later or was it 2 hours later? That matters a lot. But he did not call police then. He gives them this information later on. Next day, Monday, October 7th. Last activity on Suzanne's phone is in the morning at 7:15. It pinged a tower in a business parking lot somewhere in Almost Park. 3 p.m., the kids' school calls Brad to say that Suzanne hasn't shown up yet to pick up the kids. Suzanne always picked up the youngest at school, and Brad tells she's running late. I'm not. It's unclear to me who actually goes and picks up the child. Later on that night, it's at 10 p.m. Brad finally does report his wife missing. Earlier in the evening, around 5:30 p.m., someone posts on Suzanne's Facebook page, presumably not her, something about a generic marketing post about an upcoming open house for a house that she's selling. Next day, Tuesday, October 8th, Brad is now becoming uncooperative, and he had agreed to talk to investigators about what's going on with his wife and what had happened in his driveway. He doesn't show up for the interview. Cops find out that he is not at the house in Alamos Park. He's now up at their property in Bandera County. Cops also then talk to Brad's brother. I shit you not, this man's name is Barton Simpson. I feel bad for this dude growing up as. I mean, he's older than the Simpsons TV show, but I'm sure this has been a chronic joke for him for his whole life. Uh, Barton tells police that Brad had called him and quote apologized for all the problems he had caused unquote. 4:30 p.m. Police talk to staff at the school where the kid attends. Staff there knew that there were problems at home, that the parents were fighting, that Brad had assaulted Suzanne and apparently had taken her phone away at one point recently. And the kid had also said that mom had a bruise on her elbow. Almost Park Police release a missing person flyer at around 1 p.m. Neighbors and friends start to show up in the area, passing out flyers. They're canvassing, they're searching the woods, they're doing whatever they can to help find their friend and neighbor. It's not until this evening, on the evening of the 8th, that police talk to that neighbor who tells them about the altercation in the driveway. Next day, October 9th,
What the
uh,
fuck?
shortly after midnight, they police get an arrest warrant for Brad, not for not for murder, not for anything else, but arrest him on charges of assault and unlawful restraint based on what the neighbor had seen. But, you can't grab someone and prevent them from leaving on foot or any other way. So they arrest him 1:30 a.m. He's taken into custody, but he's not in Bear County. He's up in Kendall County, and so DPS and Kendall County sheriffs, grab Brad. He is just off I-10, out close to Bernie, Texas, so way
Hmm.
out toward the northwest. So Brad's booked into Kendall County Jail at 4 a.m. Bond set at $1 million per charge. Um, uh, Villegas is the police chief for Alamos Park, I believe. I think I deleted some notes here right in the middle. Um, so Villegas holds a media briefing, announces the arrest of Brad. Goes on to say that the investigators did find two items in the woods. So where their house is on Almost Drive, basically faces in this one section of that little section of woods in Almost Basin that just dumps out into the neighborhood. So two items were found there. I happened to be driving through the neighborhood the day this happened. I was trying to figure out what the hell was going on. So, that block was closed off, and there are all these vehicles there because they were doing all this work. Um, so found two items in the woods. He would not explain what they were, would not offer up any insights into whether or not they were connected to Suzanne or not. House is also searched. But again, police don't really explain anything about it really. Next morning, Thursday the 10th, crime scene tape around the home is taken down. Traffic along East Almost Drive is open again, so you can drive through there. Um, at 8 a.m. that day, a detective does confirm in an interview, I believe, with KSAT News, confirming that the house had been searched but didn't offer any details. Simpson, at this point, now better than 3 days in, is moved from Kendall County to Bear County Jail. Brad Simpson's mother, without revealing her name, tells KSAT News, quote, I'm in total disbelief. We are devastated, and we do need privacy, and that's all we're asking for because our concern right now is for these children and these grandchildren. 4 p.m. that day, Villegas holds another media briefing, releases a photo from security camera showing Suzanne leaving the Argyle on the evening of the 6th.
Hmm.
The Friday, October 11th rolls around. The feds get involved. They place a hold on Brad, and basically a hold says, "Fuck this guy. Don't let him go. We don't care what create any reason, but keep him in custody until we figure out what's next." Authorities searched a section of Highway 87, out very close to Bernie as well, about a mile from where Brad was arrested. Searchers are out there for like 7 hours. But don't reveal if they found anything or if they did find something, what it means. They offer no details. Saturday the 12th, a warrant is issued to search a landfill in southeast Bexar County. I can't
Oh
picture
no.
I can't picture a landfill out there. I don't know where this landfill is exactly. But it's so the search warrant is filed, but it's filed under seal, and so no one, reporters can't look at it. We don't know what's in it. On Sunday the 13th, Barton Simpson, the brother, releases a statement on social media, basically saying we're thankful for the community. We're not going to stop until we find her. So he's very much not in his brother's corner, but in his sister-in-law's corner. Not until a week later, on Monday the 14th, that's when the media is notified that the search is actually taking place in southeast Bexar County. And so a bunch of reporters go out there and I'm sure camp out and try to get some footage, try to get some insight of what's going on. A bond hearing for Brad that had been scheduled for that day is then canceled because of the federal hold for him. They just cancel that and say, yeah, sit your ass down. You're going nowhere. Next day, October 15th, the search of the landfill keeps going. In an email to Alamos Park residents, the police chief, Villegas, reveals that some of the evidence and basically they were encouraged by evidence and statements made by somebody, it's not specified, led to folks going to the landfill. And then SAPD Police Chief McManus also says that because Alamos Park is T90, right in the middle of San Antonio. I don't know how
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I have no idea how big their staff is, but it is small. About 25 cadets from SAPD are basically brought in to help with canvassing and searching and doing some of the legwork. An affidavit is also revealed showing that Brad is now facing federal charges for owning an illegal weapon, a short-barreled rifle, which have been illegal for nearly 100 years or 90 years. So he faces 10 years in federal prison on that alone and a $250,000 fine. And so this is the cause for the federal hold on him, and so why he can't be released on bond. October 16th, the search of the landfill keeps going. And it doesn't end until sometime early on October 17th. Texas DPS say in spite of being there now for 4 days, they have found nothing at the landfill related to Suzanne. City of Alamos Park Mayor Aaron Harrison says that the search is coming back to Alamos Park, and so they enlist the help of a nonprofit who does help with search and rescue to do some more, looking around, presumably in those woods to see what they can find. Still nothing.
This would be just to the north of Trinity, right? Off 281
Yes,
area. Okay.
exactly right.
All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. 300 yards from Trinity, right there.
Okay.
So Monday, October 21st, a guy named James Cotter, as a guy, he's 65. He's described as being a business associate of Brad's, is arrested on felony charges for tampering with evidence with intent to impair an investigation. And so jail records show Cotter also faces a felony charge of possession of prohibited weapons. 22nd, Brad is charged with tampering, fabricating physical evidence with intent to impair, as well as the prohibited weapon charge. Again, it's the short-barreled gun. October 22nd, Cotter is his updated booking page is removed, and but he's basically being charged with this is a felony charge basically because he has these guns in his possession. His bail is set at $1 million for his charge. Well, why? Well, 2 days after, and Cotter's involvement is critical because 2 days after Suzanne's disappearance, Brad sends a text message to Cotter that says, quote, "If you're in Bandera, can you haul ass and meet me at your house? I don't have much time." And then shortly thereafter, quote, "Sorry for the urgency, but you're all I got, especially now. Social media is destroying me." Cotter, reportedly, allegedly, had a an AK-47 that had been walled in to like a living room wall. It was, it was drywalled in to hide it, and police found it. So first of all, just to cover our asses, allegedly, whatever. This is all alleged. Obviously,
Sure.
this looks terrible. This is the same story that we've all heard 1,000 fucking times. So first of all, allegedly. Second of all, fuck this guy and fuck his friend. I'm again blown away by the number of these stories that exist where someone fucks up and chooses violence and then calls someone else to help them cover it up, and then that person actually does it. Uh, so, I mean, it's pretty clear now that from what people have said online, what her family has said online, that they are all convinced that she is dead because there's no access to money, there's no access to a cell phone, there's no access to vehicles. She's dead, but they haven't found her. And so now we're dropping this episode on November 5th. It has been a month, no trace of her. I would like to say it's just a matter of time before they find her, but of course, sometimes bodies are not found. I don't care what she did or what she didn't do. I don't care what she did to piss him off. I don't care if she called him a dickhead in front of his friends. Again, as I've said, I think on this podcast in relation to other stories, and I know I've said offline, just divorce her. If what the fuck is
Walk
going
away.
on? Walk
Walk
away.
away.
Like, why
Yeah.
is this? What? This has really been preying on me. Maybe she's an awful mother. Maybe she's an awful terrible. Maybe she was having an affair. Maybe she's a terrible human being. I don't give a shit. Just walk away. Brad is still in custody and presumably will never leave it. He's trying to get visitation with his kids. Um, it was reported a few days ago, there are multiple pages out there that are GoFundMe things for these children. And only one of them is legit. The other ones are just absolute scams.
Ugh.
And so if you hear this story and you're in the Central Texas area and you feel bad for this woman or her children, be real careful about where you give money. I'm not going to even, I don't want to link to a URL because I will, you have to be really diligent and make sure that you're giving money to the right one, because there's some dirtbag out there trying to profit from an awful, awful story. Hopefully this fuck will be in Huntsville or somewhere for the rest of his fucking life. And this story just continues. Hopefully she turns up, and hopefully this guy is gone forever. Related to this, I just wanted to tell the story in the hopes I would maybe stop thinking about it. I'm working sort of in the background on another story related to a missing person, and that story is related to the basically the sibling of a friend of mine went missing when they were children,
Right.
and I have to do a lot of work on that in order to tell that story. But do you have any idea how many folks in the U.S. are reported missing annually?
It's pretty high.
It's a
100,000?
way higher. Six
200,000.
600,000 people.
600,000 people
Yeah. In
just
2020,
walking off in the middle of the
in
night, just
2022
leaving.
or 23, 600,000 people were reported missing. Now, it's important to say that a very, very large percentage of them, I don't have the numbers in front of me, turned back up, right? They're off the grid, they lost their phone, whatever the fuck it was, they reappear. But a staggering number of them vanish. And a staggering number of them vanish because the spouse, the boyfriend, the sibling, the parent, the whoever. I mean, a lot of it is custody issues, right? You got custody of the kids. Fuck you. I'm taking them. And so the father takes them for the weekend and then wanders off with them, and the kids are never seen again. So it's between 500 and 600,000 people a year. 25 years ago, it was 1 million people a year because
Holy
of
shit.
the advances in ring cameras, cell phone cameras, security cameras everywhere. 1 million people a year were reported missing. That's bullshit. So again, have a problem with someone. We live in a state where you can buy thousands of rounds of ammunitions and assault style weapons. And you have, I mean, as we've discussed on this podcast, I am fervently against the death penalty. But this ass fuck deserves to have his balls cut off and then dropped headfirst into a wood chipper. Fuck this dude. Allegedly. Fuck this dude. I don't. It just pisses me off. Quit slapping people around that you are and doing far worse to people that you allegedly care for. Fuck you. There.
So
I said my piece.
how long again? How long did the neighbor wait before he came up with this information of what he saw?
He didn't. He saw it that night. He was not interviewed until 2 days later. I don't. He must not have called the police until the next day, I guess, at some point, and then they didn't interview him until 48 hours later. I say he.
What the hell?
I believe it's a man. Um, yeah. So if you witness something like this, you call authorities right then when it's happening. So you hear yelling and screaming. You hear "fuck you," "no fuck you." You hear screaming. What are you doing? Call 911 wherever you are. I don't care if you're in the fucking sticks. You know, if you I mean, Texas is a huge ass state. If you're between here and El Paso and you're in fucking Junction, there is someone who answers 911 wherever you are. Um, this is bullshit that this kind of crap goes on in a modern society, that people are just vanished because someone else got upset, someone else got angry, someone else got their feelings hurt, someone else was disrespected. Fuck you. Grow up. I just these stories just get under my skin more than I can possibly say. And so this lady's, mother of four, um, presumably gone forever. I mean, the odds of her turning up, man, oh, I was in Cabo. No, she's not. She's dead somewhere. This fucker. And he'll go off and be a guest of the state for the rest of his life, and he'll probably never say a fucking thing because he's convinced that he can get away with this because there's no body. At least at this point, there's nobody. And so I don't know. I mean, not a very funny story, but hopefully this guy gets fucked. And there you have it. And I will certainly circle back to this down the road as this story evolves. But there's a lot out there. There's not this has not been talked about as far as I know on any podcast. I looked a little bit, but
It's the first I've heard of it.
there are a lot of
So
news articles out there, and a lot of folks in San Antonio talking about it. And she had a huge circle of friends, born and raised in San Antonio, lived here her whole life. And so where the hell is she? I don't know.
it sounds like there was good cooperation between Kendall County and Bear County. I mean, in terms of
Yeah, and then Almost Park in San Antonio. It's like, okay, what do
because you got so many little municipalities. You've got Alamo Heights, you've got Hollywood Park, you've got Terrell Hills, I think, is in that same area, and
yeah,
just
pretty much so,
kind
right.
of all
Go
these
ahead.
little fiefdoms that could easily not work together.
Right.
They were so inclined. That's
So
crazy,
anyway,
Brian. I'd not heard that story. That's
yep. So we will circle back to this if it ever evolves into something else. But good old Brad's going to be the guest of Bear County for a good long while, and then he has probably completely fucked himself.
well,
And on that note, so if you want, I mean, if you want to maybe feel better about it, do a little Googling, find the page for this family. It sounds like they have really mobilized aunts, and uncles, and friends, and grandparents, and hopefully these kids are okay. Three of the four are grown or mostly grown. One little kid, which sucks
that's
ass, and
awful.
right, but and they have resources, and hopefully those kids will be okay. But pretty shitty.
I'm speechless. I don't. I that's an awful, awful story.
Yep.
But you told it well.
Well, thanks so much.
Yes. So I don't know where to go from here at the end of the episode, but that's I'll have to look into that because I've not heard anything about this. This is the first time I've heard of it. So, and let's face it, San Antonio is a big place. There's lots of places you can hide people,
Yes.
let alone the state of Texas.
I read somewhere that the city of San Antonio city limits are roughly equivalent to Houston city limits but obviously with far fewer people. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of space out here. And this guy seems to have known where to go across 3 counties. So she could be almost anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So sad.
All
But
right.
thanks for listening to our nonsense. Thanks for the 2 weeks off. We appreciate that. If you like our version of insanity, please like and share and subscribe to our stuff. Give us 5 stars. Give us a review. That'd be helpful. Check out dreamidiots.com. We've got some merchandise on there. We're on Facebook and Instagram at Dream Idiots. And drop us a line too if you'd like. Dreamidiotspodcast at gmail.com.
And be good to yourself on election night tonight, folks. You know, we're all in this together, whether we like it or not. So, um, I don't know what I'm going to do. I doubt I'll watch it second by second. One of my sons gave me a massive jigsaw puzzle for my birthday, and
That's a much better use of time.
it's a bear. I think a lot of stress puzzle solving will be done
Right.
at that time. So,
There you go.
all right, folks,
All right.
be good to
Thanks.
be good to each other.